Staring at a TV screen won't cause you to go blind, but your eyes may work so hard that you get a headache. And if you have to sit super close, get your eyes checked. So, moving forward towards our topic. The photoreceptors for sight are in the eyes. The eyes are located in spherical chambers called orbits. Orbits are formed by the skull's bones called as frontal, lacrimal, ethmoid, zygomatic, maxillar, and sphenoid. The bony ridge superior to the orbits, called the supraorbital ridge, protects the eye from blows and serves as a location for the eyebrows. The eye has its own accessory organs too. Accessory organs of the eye include the eyebrows, eyelids, and eyelashes. Secondly, the lacrimal apparatus, which produces tears. And thirdly, the extrinsic muscles that move the eye. Now, let's discuss the eyebrows, eyelids, and eyelashes. Eyebrows have short, thick hairs positioned transversely above the eye along the supraorbital ridge. Eyebrows shade the eyes from the sun and prevent perspiration or debris on the forehead from falling into the eye. Eyelids are a continuation of the skin, and their eyelashes can also trap debris and keep it from entering the eyes. Sebaceous glands associated with each eyelash produce an oily secretion that lubricates the eye. Inflammation of one of the glands is called a stye. Blinking of eyelids keeps the eye lubricated and free of debris. The eyelids are operated by the orbicularis oculi muscle, which closes the lid, and by the levator palpebrae superioris muscle, which raises the lid. People with myasthenia gravis have weakness in these muscles due to the destruction of receptors for the neurotransmitter acetylcholine, and their eyelids often have to be taped open. The inner surface of an eyelid is lined by a transparent mucous membrane called the conjunctiva. The conjunctiva folds back to cover the anterior of the eye, except for the cornea, which is covered by a delicate epithelium. So, this is superior rectus muscle. This is optic or cranial nerve 2. This is inferior rectus muscle. Now, moving towards lacrimal apparatus. A lacrimal apparatus consists of the lacrimal gland and the lacrimal sac with its ducts. The lacrimal gland, which lies in the orbit above the eye, produces tears that flow over the eye when the eyelids are blinked. The tears, collected by two small ducts, pass into the lacrimal sac before draining into the nose by way of the nasolacrimal duct, while these are nostrils. Now, let's discuss the extrinsic muscles. Within an orbit, the eye is anchored in place by the extrinsic muscles, whose contractions move the eyes. Each of these muscles originates from the bony orbit and inserts by tendons to the outer layer of the eyeball. There are three pairs of antagonistic extrinsic muscles. First pair consists of superior rectus, which rolls eye upward, and inferior rectus, which rolls eye downward. Second pair consists of lateral rectus, which turns eye outward away from midline, and medial rectus, which turns eye inward toward midline. Third pair consists of superior oblique, which rotates eye counterclockwise, and inferior oblique, which rotates eye clockwise. Both of the oblique muscles attach to the eye surface by a tendon that travels through a tendon ring so that each acts as a pulley. Let's label remaining important parts. This is levator palpebrae superioris muscle. This is upper eyelid. This is cornea. These are eyelashes. This is orbicularis oculi muscle. This is conjunctiva. This is sclera. Now moving forwards into further details. 3 cranial nerves control the extraocular muscles. These are the oculomotor, or cranial nerve 3, trochlear, or cranial nerve 4, and abducens, or cranial nerve 6. The oculomotor nerve supplies the superior, inferior, and medial rectus muscles, as well as the inferior oblique muscle. The trochlear nerve directs the superior oblique muscle. The abducens nerve innervates the lateral rectus muscle. The motor units of these muscles are the smallest in the body. A single motor axon serves only about 10 muscle fibers, allowing eyeball movements to be very precise. Now moving towards anatomy and physiology of the eye. The eyeball, which is an elongated sphere, about 2.5 centimeters in diameter, has 3 layers or coats: the sclera, the choroid, and the retina. Only the retina contains photoreceptors for light energy. The outer layer, the sclera, is white and fibrous except for the cornea, which is made of transparent collagen fibers. The sclera protects and supports eyeball. The cornea is located anteriorly and acts as a window into the eye. It refracts or bends light rays as they enter the eye. The middle thin, darkly pigmented layer, the choroid, is well supplied with blood vessels. It absorbs stray light rays that photoreceptors have not absorbed. Anteriorly, the choroid becomes the donut-shaped iris. The iris is a pigmented smooth muscle structure that regulates the size of the pupil. Pupil is a hole in the center of the iris, through which light enters the eyeball. The color of the iris, and therefore the color of your eyes, is determined by its pigmentation. Heavily pigmented eyes are brown, while lightly pigmented eyes are green or blue. Iris regulates entrance of light into retina. Just posterior to the iris, the choroid thickens and forms the circular ciliary body. The ciliary body contains the ciliary muscle, which controls the shape of the lens for near and far vision. Ciliary body holds the lens in place, and ciliary muscle causes accommodation and changes the shape of the lens for near or far vision. Changing the shape of the lens is a process called accommodation. Lens refracts or bends and focuses light rays. The lens, which is attached to the ciliary body by the suspensory ligaments, divides the eye into 2 compartments. The one in front of the lens is the anterior compartment, and the one behind the lens is the posterior compartment. The anterior compartment is filled with a clear watery fluid called the aqueous humor. A small amount of aqueous humor is continually produced each day. Normally, it leaves the anterior compartment by way of tiny ducts. Blockage of the ducts results in glaucoma. Aqueous humor transmits light rays and supports anterior compartment. Suspensory ligaments support lens and attach lens to ciliary body. The third layer of the eye is the retina. Retina contains sensory receptors for light. It is located in the posterior compartment. The posterior compartment contains the vitreous body, which is filled with a clear gelatinous material called the vitreous humor. Vitreous humor transmits light rays and supports posterior compartment. The retina contains photoreceptors called rod cells and cone cells. Rods are receptors for black and white sim light vision and peripheral vision. The rods are very sensitive to light, but they don't see color. Therefore, at night or in a darkened room, we see only shades of gray. Rods also give us peripheral vision, as when you sense movement beside you. The cones, which require bright light, are sensitive to different wavelengths of light, and therefore we have the ability to distinguish colors. So cones are receptors for color vision, bright light vision. The retina has a very special region called the macula lutea. At its center is an area termed the fovea centralis, which contains only cone cells. Light is normally focused on the fovea when we look directly at an object. This is helpful because vision is most acute in the fovea centralis. Sensory fibers from the retina form the optic nerve, which takes nerve signals to the brain. The optic disc is a tiny area surrounding the optic nerve. Because there are no photoreceptors in this area, it is the blind spot of the retina. These are retinal blood vessels. Now, let's discuss the vision pathway. The pathway for vision begins once light has been focused on the photoreceptors in the retina. Some integration occurs in the retina, where nerve signals begin before the optic nerve transmits them to the brain. Now, let's discuss pathway from the retina to the visual cortex. So, how does a light signal entering your eyes turn into visual information in your brain? As you know, sensory fibers from the ganglion cells in the retina assemble to form the optic nerves. The optic nerves carry nerve signals from the eyes to the optic chiasma. The optic chiasma has an X shape formed by a crossing over of some of the optic nerve fibers. At the chiasma, fibers from the right half of each retina converge and continue on together in the right optic tract, and fibers from the left half of each retina converge and continue on together in the left optic tract. The optic tracts sweep around the hypothalamus, and most fibers synapse with neurons in nuclei, which are collections of neuron cell bodies in the thalamus. Axons from the thalamic nuclei form optic radiations that take nerve signals to the primary visual areas of the occipital lobes. The occipital lobes are a part of the cerebral cortex. Notice that the image arriving at the thalamus, and therefore the primary visual areas, has been split, because the left optic tract carries information about the right portion of the visual field, and the right optic tract carries information about the left portion of the visual field. Therefore, the right visual cortex and left visual cortex must communicate with each other for us to see the entire visual field. Because the image is inverted and reversed, it must be righted for us to correctly perceive the visual field. Additionally, inputs from each half of the visual cortex are viewed at slightly different angles. This creates stereoscopic vision, the impression of three-dimensional width and depth. The most surprising finding has been that each primary visual area of the cerebral cortex acts like a post office, parceling out information regarding color, form, motion, and possibly other attributes to different portions of the adjoining visual association areas. In other words, the visual field has been taken apart even though we see a unified field. The visual association areas are believed to rebuild the field and give us an understanding of it. So this was all about this section. In our next section, Dr. Diana will help us to understand the sense of hearing.
Explore our extensive library of over 1,800 video lectures to learn about a wide range of topics. Only on sqadia.com.